Hello and welcome to the Inspiring Women Wales podcast brought to you by NatWest Cymru and the University of South Wales. I'm Gemma Casey, NatWest Cymru's Ecosystem Manager for Wales. With this podcast, we're bringing you the stories of brilliant female founders of Welsh businesses who have faced the challenges of business life head on. My guest for this episode has certainly had more than her fair share of challenges over the past couple of years. Her industry was closed down by the pandemic and reopened only to face a recruitment crisis and a cost of living crisis. Natalie Isaac is director of the 44 Group. Hi Natalie, thank you for joining me.
Absolute pleasure, lovely to see you.
Your restaurants will be really familiar to a lot of our listeners in South Wales. Tell us a little bit about those and also the new addition to the 44 Group family.
So we started our first Bar 44 in Cowbridge in 2002, which was actually our family sort of hometown. I'd been working in London in the hospitality industry and wanted to move home. Having lived in London and been able to go somewhere as a female on their own for a nice glass of wine in a bar, moving back to a market town in South Wales in the early 2000s was a huge eye-opener. You couldn't go into any pub in Cowbridge and get a glass of wine even. It was a pint of beer. And certainly as a single female walking through the door, you didn't feel altogether comfortable. So we decided to open a Bar 44, which was welcoming to everybody, whether on their own, part of a group, a family, and to be able to do high quality food and drink at your leisure. And Spain was our inspiration. We grew up going on holidays to Spain and we loved everything about it. So Spain it was to be.
Fabulous. So it's the concept is a tapas bar.
Yeah, so tapas and e-copas is our sort of strap line, and we give equal measure to food and drink in the Bar 44 brand, something a lot of restaurants don't do. They're either more food or more wet-led focused. So we wanted to give equal measure to both. So you'll find a massive drinks list in all the Bar 44s where we do everything from cocktails to sherry to amazing wines, bubbles, gins, and superb beers that are paired with all of our food dishes.
And from that original Bar 44 in Cowbridge, you've grown to quite a few establishments in South Wales.
Yeah, so it took about 10 years for us to open our second bar, which is actually quite slow in modern day terms. My brothers in particular worked in Bar 44 in Cowbridge for 10 years and they learnt everything. They were self-taught chefs. And they used to make the cocktails, they used to do the cleaning, they would do absolutely everything so that we couldn't be held to ransom by any staff. We had a number of chefs come in and leave at short notice, as is their way occasionally. So we were left high and dry. So sort of self-taught everything in that respect. And then Pennod opened in 2012. Cardiff, Adeiladu, which was a new Spanish brand cooking over wood and fire, opened shortly after that. And in 2018, we opened in Clifton in Bristol. So we went over the bridge, which was a separate challenge, to be fair.
And you've just opened a hotel as well, I believe.
Yeah, so 10 days ago, we opened Parador 44 above our Adeiladu restaurant. It's always been part of the dream and the brand, the way we wanted to develop the brand. But I guess COVID gave us time and some opportunity to explore new things, which is a rare commodity in normal day-to-day business. And we were able to purchase the building from our then landlord Brains and go on to apply for planning during one of the lockdowns. And we did a 16-week build from January of this year and opened at the end of June. So we now have 9 beautiful sherry bedrooms in the heart of Cardiff, above our Adeiladu restaurant with a absolutely gorgeous roof terrace in the middle of the chimney pots of Cardiff. You can just about see the stadium from the roof terrace. If the seagulls aren't getting in the way, that's one problem we're having a bit of a trauma with. And we also have an amazing honesty bar there, which supplies, rather than have separate mini bars in all the bedrooms, because that we're trying to be more green We've just done one amazing honesty bar where you can pour yourself a gin and tonic, a glass of sherry or cava, a beer, and fantastic snacks, and enjoy those on the terrace or in the guest lounge.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing, Natalie. So you mentioned there that you work alongside your brothers in the 44 group. Tell me how that came about. How did you end up going into business with your brothers? And how is that? A lot of times we hear that family businesses can bring with them their own challenges and tensions.
Yeah. So I, at the age of 14, I worked in a local restaurant near Cowbridge, and it absolutely gave me the hospitality bug. I went on to do my A-levels, economics, maths and so on, and then went to university to study hospitality and hotel management. When I graduated, I went to London and worked with the Rue Brothers, Prue Leith and various other people. But it was always a dream to come back to Wales and open a business here. And when an opportunity arose in 2000 to buy a restaurant in Cowbridge, I actually sold my London flat and came back home and bought a restaurant in Cowbridge. My brothers at the time were both in university studying geography and sports psychology. They graduated and really didn't know what they wanted to do. I felt really lucky that I'd always known what career I wanted to pursue. They didn't really know. So the old Conservative Club in Cowbridge on the first floor came up for rental. And we were like, well, let's give it a go. I already had a restaurant in town. Let's open a bar together as a joint venture between the three of us. Other than having worked in holiday time as students in hospitality, Tom and Owen had little experience in the industry, so it was a huge eye opener. But that's where it all began. And it's great.
I'm interested to explore a little bit about the fact that, as a partnership, there were two males and then yourself involved in this. We know from extensive research that generally, women do face more barriers in starting and scaling businesses than men. Our CEO, Alison Rose, wrote the Rose Review of Female Entrepreneurship in 2019, and there's ongoing work to keep that research up to date. And she gave an interview very recently where she talked about coming across women in business who've got quite outstandingly bad examples of where they've been treated differently. So she had one woman tell her that she was asked, was her husband going to be running her business for her, and things like that. Have you ever had any experience of being treated differently to your brothers at all?
I think back in the day in London, I was a female in a very male-dominated industry. I went up the ladder very quickly to director level, and certainly I had some absolutely awful experiences. I remember once I was working for Prue Leith in her events and parties division, and I'd just been made the general manager there, and we were doing the catering at Proms in the Park. And I had asked one of the managers, I'd placed my order for all the booze for the weekend to be ordered. And I think I'd ordered like 30 cases of Pimm's. And he decided that I didn't know what on earth I was talking about, and he absolutely would not be ordering me the 30 cases of Pimm's. So we had a very high-profile client running the event, and Pimm's was to be the opening drink for thousands of people on the day, and we ran out after half an hour. So there were certain that happened, I think, because of my age as well as the fact that I was a female. Moving back to Wales, actually, and working with Tom and Owen, I haven't seen that as much. I think in London it was a different story back in the late 90s. But certainly now, I think, people do treat us equally. Sometimes I go to a meeting occasionally when people don't know the vibe of the family, and they'll talk directly to my brothers and sort of leave me out. But you have to stamp your authority and, show that you do know what you're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, I've heard Mary Portas talk about a similar experience where she went to a meeting and somebody addressed the man who was with her. And I mean, she's pretty well known, isn't she? So if it can happen to her. You mentioned there the vibe in the family. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. Have you learned over the course of your time working together who's got what strengths and who's got what weaknesses, and have you learned how to work together to really complement those?
Absolutely. We've learned that we have to divide and conquer. That's the only way to move forward in business. In the very early days, we made with our solicitor an agreement between all of us, a partnership agreement, as to what the parameters were, and if big decisions or expenditure or so on was going to be made, then we sort of predetermined what the process was, because we really didn't want to fall in the trap of falling out as a family. And I think that was very good advice from our solicitor and accountant at the time, and I'm really glad we do that, because even 20 years on, we still occasionally refer to that if we're at deadlock in anything. We absolutely, in the beginning, I guess it was a little bit muddy waters. But when we expanded to 3 and 4 sites, then the only way to get stuff done is to actually, play to everyone's strengths. And we all know now what we do. So if an email or a press request or anything else like that comes in, it's very clear to us who that goes to and who deals with it. So Owen is the product, the food, the drink, and the passion. Tom, bless him, does all the maintenance and the property and health and safety and all that sort of stuff. And then on the other hand, he looks for new property as well for us. So that can be really interesting. And then I'm on the operational and the financial side.
Leads me on really nicely to my next question, which is going to be about the challenges that you've faced over the last couple of years. So, hospitality absolutely front and centre of those challenges with the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns, the social distancing, and then, of course, emerging from that straight into a recruitment crisis, cost of living crisis, less disposable income, wages going up. We could go on, couldn't we? Yeah. I'm guessing that primarily all sits with you. Talk to us a little bit about how that has been and where you're at the moment and how you're dealing with things.
So I remember to the week before we were locked down. It was quite possibly the worst week of my career. The 3 of us have never been so emotional or drained. We were running a brilliant, thriving business. We were ahead of the curve with our budgets for the year. We were in a brilliant place after Christmas. And then I remember hearing in the news about this COVID, thinking, oh God, it's not going to affect us, And then all of a sudden, everything stopped. We were open and there were absolutely no customers. We were throwing food away daily. We had the Wales-Scotland match in the rugby book. Everyone was booked in for that. We had all the beer delivered. We had all the food there. Everyone had paid. We were absolutely crazy busy. And then that was cancelled with less than 24 hours notice. People were even already on planes to come to Wales. It couldn't have been any worse. We had hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of stock that we could not sell, we could not use, and hundreds of staff with no work for them. So I remember making frantic calls to other colleagues in the industry. What were they doing? Our accountant, our solicitor, we'd be in work at like 5, 6 in the morning trying to get an emergency plan together. And we had, meetings with staff. We were waiting to hear if our insurance company would pay out. And we were advised not to shut until we found out if they would pay out or not. As soon as we heard the answer was no, they will not be paying out, we then shut the doors and called all the staff in for a meeting. We had to let certain people go, put 0 hours contracts into play, which we've never, ever done in our history. And then we had all the meetings, made all the decisions, kept ring-fenced a small number of staff that we knew we could afford to pay for 3 months. And we asked them all to take a pay cut. They all agreed. They're amazing, our team. And then, thank goodness, that night at the press conference, good old Rishi announced furlough. And again, massive relief. I just remember sitting there crying. It's like, thank goodness, like we've got 130 staff. We can now help them. We were lucky. We had money in the bank because we were about to go again and open a new site. And I remember my accountant saying to me, it's all about cash, Nat. You've got to keep the cash. If you've got cash, you'll get through this. So thank goodness we hadn't signed on the new site and we had the money ready to invest in it. So, and then followed two years of a ridiculous scenario, really, particularly in Wales with the more difficult restrictions. We ended up closing our Cowbridge site, very sadly. It was a casualty of COVID because we would only have really opened in January of this year after the last lot of restrictions for the very first time. So we would have been closed for close to 2 years. And our lease ran out during the lockdown. So we couldn't, in all good conscience, sign a new lease on somewhere that we didn't know on earth when we would be able to open it. And that was a massive heart thing because it was our first Bar 44. That was a really sad day when we had to make that decision and empty everything out. I have to say the standout thing through COVID is that we developed some new businesses. We wrote a cookery book. Tom and Owen on the main did that. So that was amazing. So we got all our story, our recipes and so on down on paper, and that was published last year. We got the hotel project off the ground and we developed a Mercado 44, a new brand, which was an online site for us. So we didn't sit still. We used the time. Our teams were just amazing. Many of them are still with us now and stood by our side all the way through it and did what they could to help. But yeah, we've reopened and it was great for a couple of months. And then in the last 6 weeks, again, the cost of living crisis is really hitting us. That coupled with the recruitment scenario, I think we're now in an absolutely perfect storm for things to go wrong. I'm more worried actually now than I was a year ago with the COVID scenario. For us, the ability to not be able to recruit has really clipped our wings. So we're back only open 5 days a week in most of our sites still. So our turnover is still nowhere near back to where it was. So we're opening 8 services out of 14 currently. But that's because we haven't been able to recruit enough staff. But now with the inflation, which I have to say in food and beverage is closer to 55, 60%, it's certainly not 9 to 12%, which most people will see in their supermarket shops, I would imagine. But for us, the biggest worry of all is the energy, because restaurants, on average, we use £2,500 to £3,000 a month worth of energy in our billing. And we've been told when we're out of contract that it's going to go up to 500% plus. And no restaurant, certainly not small independent restaurants that have 100 covers, they don't make that much profit to cover a 500% increase in utility bills. So that with the inflation and the cost of living and recruitment and also the fact that people haven't got as much money in their pocket, we've definitely seen a slump in sales in the last 6 weeks. Still people are coming out, but the average spend has gone down. So if the sales go down and all the costs go up, it's a perfect storm, as I say.
Yeah, gosh, that's quite a picture you're painting there, Natalie. But one thing that stands out is you mentioned more than once there the passion of your staff. I'm really interested in exploring with you how you build that. I mean, clearly that's something that you, Tom and Owen, have done to ensure there is this culture in place that they're not only there for you in the good times, but they're sticking with you and pulling together in the bad times as well. How does a business go about building a team and building a culture that is that resilient and resistant?
I think it's all about respect. We don't. I know a lot of people come to us from much larger companies and they feel like they're a number, not a name or an individual. And I'd like to say that we know, the majority of our staff to say, how was your graduation? How was your daughter's birthday? And we have that interaction with them. And that's how we would like to be treated, the three of us. So we try to make sure that happens always within the business. Work's hard work, particularly in hospitality. It's unsociable hours and you're missing out on good times, maybe birthdays, so on, because it's hard to get many Saturdays off a year because that's our busiest day of the week,
Yeah.
So you have to be passionate about what you do. And I think in order to do that, you have to believe in the brand and the quality. So we're very quality led and driven. If we have to think twice about something because it's not quite there, then it won't happen because we've already answered our own question. We need to make work fun as well. COVID's clipped that slightly. We have legendary staff parties every year. They need a couple of days off after that to recover. But also we do a lot of trips to Spain with the team. Our suppliers also support us hugely. So, we regularly go out to Spain with groups of people to show them what it's all about and what the inspiration is. So, for example, we feature a cheese called Torta de Barros on our menus. It hasn't left the menu for years. And it's a really gooey, runny cheese. And Owen took a couple of the chefs out to the mountain village where it's made and to introduce them. And it's a family, village business. And because of Bar 44 having that on their menus, they've been able to employ 2 more people in their small family business. And if we took that cheese off the menu, that would be catastrophic for that village. So it's relationships like that we try to build as a company with our suppliers, with our staff, to just build a philosophy where it's fun, hardworking, and we can all be proud of what we do.
That's incredible. And yeah, relationships sound like it's at the heart of everything you do, from the teams you've got working to you to, as you say, your suppliers. In terms of still on the theme of recruitment and teams, I know that a particular passion of yours, Natalie, is about making careers in food and drink and hospitality really appealing to young people. Do you think we've still got some way to go to shift the dial on that?
I do. I think Brexit for us was huge because not only because we import a lot from Spain, but also we attracted a lot of people to come and work for us in the labour force from Europe. So we lost 40% of our workforce on Brexit, mainly skilled middle management, senior management and chefs, cocktail bar staff were the sort of level of staff that we lost. And I think when you go to Italy, France, Spain, the Canary Islands on holidays, it's very easy to see if you're in a hotel and you meet the head waiter, inevitably he's surrounded by his daughter, cousin, uncle. The whole team is made up of family who are really proud of what they do, proud of their career, and proud that they work in hospitality, and they also earn very good money doing that job. We don't do very well here at encouraging that, I don't think. Certainly, I did a degree in hotel and catering management, which was effectively a business degree, but all the examples were in hotel and catering management. And running a hospitality business, it's a business like any other. It's marketing, it's finance, it's human resources, it's all of those skills that you require. But because it's in restaurant and bars, I don't know if parents sometimes think, oh, that's not a great career for my child. But it really is, because you can be so passionate and expressive and experimental and really creative in our industry. And I'm working a lot at the moment at school and college level with some of our team to try to go in and talk at a much younger age about careers and get school visits to come out to the restaurants so that people get it from an early age. I started my first job as a kitchen porter at 14, and that's what got me into this industry. And I think we need to do much more as an industry to be appealing to people at a younger age, to look at it as a career prospect.
You've talked a lot about the support that you've offered to your teams. You talked about some of the benefits that you have in place for them because you recognise that they work really hard. What about you as a business owner, Natalie? Where do you go for your support? At NatWest and USW, we help business owners by showing them that it's really important to build a community around them. So we have the NatWest Accelerator program, which helps scaling businesses with a community, and USW have various programs and schemes that help businesses to connect. What do you do to make sure that there's somebody there to help you?
We've always had a lot of industry friends. having this type of business, you only learn and get better by exploring what others are doing. So we love to go to London and see what's going on up there, try out the new restaurants. Same in the local area. Many staff of the team who've maybe worked for us have gone on then to do their own thing. So then we follow what they're doing. I think that's great, but during COVID we found that there was a huge hole in the support network for independent restaurateurs and cafes in South Wales. So Simon Wright, who's based in West Wales, put a call to action out, and the Welsh Independent Restaurant Collective was then born. He was on the committee, and I joined that committee, and we did a huge amount of work during COVID. Now, it's dialed back a bit now because we're all very busy again running our own businesses. But what we found was that there wasn't really a sounding board for the independents, particularly in more rural areas who weren't part of a town network, that sort of thing. And certainly in terms of getting the funding, lobbying government, attending council and Welsh Government meetings, it was invaluable for us as a committee to be able to be involved in that. Get our voices heard and be able to relay information and help other businesses to access what was available, from Welsh Government. We're still talking about how we can sort of manifest that going forward as an organisation, but for sure it's staying intact just in case anything like this happens again.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a brilliant initiative. So finally then, Natalie, what would your advice be to any business people listening to this who maybe do feel a little bit isolated? Because we do know that can be one of the drawbacks of running a business. Would you suggest that they do seek out that peer-to-peer support? Is it a bit of a game changer?
It is like, reach out. There's other people probably more than in the same position. Go to some of those networking events, I guess. We always all think we're too busy, but you never know. I mean, I was a judge at the Vale Business Awards earlier this week, and I learned so much listening to some of the presentations on the day and other people's sort of idea of how they were going to tackle the cost of living crisis and this sort of thing. So, I guess it's being inquisitive, ask the questions, push yourself forward. I know whenever my brother goes into a new restaurant he hasn't been in before, he always gets in the kitchen somehow.
Fair play.
to have a look around and like, where's Owen? He's gone to the toilet. Oh no, he's in the kitchen with the head chef. There we go.
Oh, brilliant. So yes, a lesson there for us all. Oh, thank you so much to my guest, Natalie Isaac, Director of the 44 Group. And thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear further episodes of Inspiring Women Wales, then please subscribe. To find out more about this podcast and how USW Exchange can connect your organisation to the skills, expertise and facilities at the University of South Wales, visit southwales.ac.uk/business. And for more on NatWest support for small businesses, search NatWest Business Services.